New York Times Magazine chief national correspondent and CBS News contributor Mark Leibovich is in Washington to help us break down all the news out of Trump Tower today. Mark, I've got to ask, Trump still hasn't picked his Secretary of State yet. So was this a misstep, or do you think this is strategy?
Well, you could say that it's something maybe between a misstep and a strategy. I mean, this is kind of where a lot of this stuff dwells. I mean, my sense is he hasn't really thought a lot about this, and he kind of seems to be operating from a perspective of someone who has just gotten away with a lot, who seems to be pushing a lot of lines, and now it's extending into foreign policy. And if there's not a Secretary of State on hand, or even people who are briefing him or briefings that he's accepting, he does seem to be winging it. So we'll see, what the sort of well-documented style of Donald Trump winging it, how that plays out on the world stage.
Well, we just heard Josh Earnest say that they're willing to help, but apparently the White House did not know about this call. Do you think that they're going to be left with any kind of mess to clean up as far as China's concerned?
Well, I mean, the Obama people are leaving, so I mean, their cleanup is going to be short-term in so much as it is, and obviously President Obama has established relations over there, and there's precedents, and there are people at the State Department. But yeah, I mean, obviously on January 20th, this is going to become Donald Trump's, it's his world. It's he's going to have to either clean it up or pursue a different path. And again, it's a mystery, and it was also a mystery as far as the White House was concerned today, because they didn't hear about it till afterwards.
All right, let's go to some other Trump news now. Thursday night, he was in Ohio for his thank you tour, holding his first address, by the way, since his election, and he made a major announcement. Let's listen.
We are going to appoint Mad Dog Mattis as our Secretary of Defense.
Mad Dog Mattis. Apparently, Republicans are pretty happy with this. What about Democrats?
Well, I mean, I think that Mattis has a pretty decent reputation across the board. I mean, there's obviously some concerns. I thought it was interesting that Donald Trump actually introduced him with the nickname Mad Dog, almost as if he was trying to christen him formally in that role as a way to bolster his own sort of straight-ahead, blunt speaking style and so forth. But no, I mean, I think there's obviously a lot of concern about what the hearings what the confirmation hearings could yield. But it's also like you can't really remind people of this enough, the unprecedentedness of a big formal cabinet position being announced at a completely campaign-style rally like the one last night. Again, it's all part of a new precedent.
But what about the waiver that Mattis will have to get from Congress? A federal law barring secretaries of defense from having been in active duty for a certain amount of time, and Mattis does not fall within that time range.
Right. I mean, this is, kind of, if you look at the Democrats' perspective in the Senate on this, this is almost in a choose your battle, category. I mean, yes, they could get him on the waivers. I mean, Senator Gillibrand, for instance, today or yesterday said that she would, she would not look past this, and she would insist on a longer waiting period. Thus, he's not going to get the waiver from her. At the same time, there's people like Jeff Sessions. There could be a very controversial, or who's been nominated as Attorney General. There could be a very controversial pick at Treasury. There already is with Steve Mnuchin. There is all kinds of who knows what's going to happen if Rudy Giuliani or someone like John Bolton or someone who's more incendiary is nominated at state. So you can't have these long, protracted battles for every single high-level cabinet position. So you do sort of have to wonder if Mattis is acceptable to a critical mass of Democrats, and they wouldn't have the votes to hold this up anyway. Why not sort of hold your fire, or even hold up your tactical, tools in your tool shed for, something that they might want to really go to the mat for, whether it's, Sessions or whoever else.
You mentioned Rudy Giuliani. His name has been bandied about for Secretary of State, as has General David Petraeus, Senator Bob Corker. And then there's Mitt Romney. A lot of people are kind of watching and wondering what all these talks are about. So the Romney equation, though, he's very outspoken about his disdain during the campaign. Now he seems to have been, or rather done an about-faced. Why would Trump want him on his team?
Well, I mean, again, this is like all decisions, it rests with Donald Trump. I mean, Romney at this point, you could say he's twisting in the wind, but at the same time, I mean, this is a long process, and Trump is obviously in a very public way drawing this out as long as possible. I mean, I think Trump, I think, genuinely has interest in Mitt Romney. I think he looks the part, which is important to Donald Trump. He finds, he has stately position, and it also represents a reconciliation with the Republican establishment that so openly defied him and that he so openly ran against during the campaign. And, he has people on his team like Reince Priebus, presumably, maybe even Mike Pence, who would be supportive of him coming on. So he does have a lot going for him. They've obviously had 2 meetings. But you do have to wonder, what is Donald Trump thinking? Is there some element of making a former rival submit to your will and make it look like you're having a job? And ultimately, I think Donald Trump sees this as a very, very kind of presidential process that he's probably enjoying on many levels.
I think so, too. But
Right.
What about Romney, though? What does he get out of this?
I don't know. It's actually a source of great confusion to a lot of people. On one hand, you could say, maybe the charitable view is that he is a patriot and he wants to do anything he can to help his country. Because, even though he disagrees very much with this president, has been very public about it, he feels he can contribute something, and it's obviously an important job. The less charitable view is it's just, opportunism, and he's got nothing else to do, and why not just try? Mitt Romney obviously came under a lot of criticism 4 years ago, and even 8 years ago when he ran for president for the first time, of being someone who flip-flopped, of being someone who would do something, not based on principles, in fact, at all. And this could play both ways. I think, maybe the more human reading of this is that, look, the guy feels important. He sort of thought he was going to have to slunk away from the stage after running in twice and losing for president. And now all of a sudden he's center stage again. And that's kind of cool, especially when you're late in your career and you think maybe you don't have much more to contribute, and all of a sudden the cameras are finding you. So, again, though, we're still in very much speculation mode. We'll know more, obviously, when we have an answer, and we'll be able to look back on this. But I think it's obviously a mystery, as a lot of this stuff is.
All right. Well, until then, we will just watch and try to pick up on clues. All right, Mark Leibovich in Washington, thanks so much. I appreciate you joining me on this evening.